Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Is this our most recent match we've ever covered? So this match took place 8 years ago, right? Have we covered one that happened past 2015?
This very well could be. I'll have to go back and look at our records here, but yeah, we've got a few actually. I know if this isn't, we've got one coming up that will be, and so yeah, we're kind of trying to avoid, not avoid, but this is not necessarily what the show's about, but wanted to do some of these and kind of get there's a reason to talk about these, so that's why we're doing some of this stuff.
Well, and the thing is, when I first saw this, I'm like, man, we're like covering a recent match. And then I'm like, dude, it was almost 10 years ago. God. Yeah,
that's the other thing of we think of what NXT is now. Like, you're going to say it, like, this show is like at Full Sail. Like, there was, maybe 500 people in the room. Like, this was, what we think of takeovers now of literally selling out like stadiums. Like, this is a different time. And so, reason to talk about it though, for sure.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Is there any reason in particular you picked this, or just hey?
Yeah, so this is what, of course, like, we are finally closer than it feel, very close to WrestleMania at this point. We got a few weeks here still, but not a whole lot between now and then. We've got Elimination Chamber is actually this week, and so we'll have some stories set up after that, but that's really it. We've got 6 weeks until WrestleMania at this point. And so I felt that this one, though, there's so many storylines like what floating out around there about the women, Charlotte's return, like what is Sasha, Mercedes doing nowadays, that I felt that it'd be good for us to kind of go back, take a look at, like, okay, like you said, it was almost 10 years ago. Like, we got to spend a little bit of time talking about this because there's things happening that people just need to kind of be aware of. So, yeah.
Dude, I got a lot to talk about during this one. I'm glad you picked this. I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get right into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So we're at the Full Sail. What did they call this?
Like, they would always just say Full Sail University on TV, but there was
no name for it. It wasn't the Thunderdome, right? It was just Full Sail. Like, it wasn't
not before
anything.
Not before the pandemic, then they started calling it the Thunderdome. But yeah, it's just their TV studio. Like, they just kind of where they had it set up.
Got it. Okay. So I was trying to rack my brain on that one. So February 11th, 2015. And again, dude, 8 years ago, my God, about 400 people fit in these tapings. Man, you just look at this card and there's a couple things that jump out at you. First of all, these NXT rosters were just loaded. The matches were awesome. Just some big names. And then, of course, my favorite part about these shows, they weren't 12 hours long, 2 hours, neat and tidy. We'll talk about NXT then versus now during the match. But
there was about NXT forever.
Yeah. There was a dark match on this. Enzo and Cass against Aiden English and Simon Gotch. And, dude, Enzo and Cass were over. Okay?
Oof, yeah.
In NXT, over when they got on the main roster. I think I was there the night they debuted on the main roster. I think it was a Raw after WrestleMania. Place went nuts. And I always...
It was the promo against the Dudley Boys. Yeah.
Yes. And the thing about... I just love that tag team because, there's the Young Bucks type tag team, the Rockers type tag team, where they look the same, dress the same, and that's really cool. But then I also love those tag teams where there's just such a massive contrast, right? So you have small guy, big guy, talker, not talker, worker, less of a worker. I love that contrast. Anyways, so the show itself, Hideo Itami defeated Tyler Breeze, 8 minutes. Baron Corbin defeated Bull Dempsey in a no DQ match in 4 minutes. Blake and Murphy defeated the Lucha Dragons of Kalisto and Sin Cara in 8 minutes to retain the tag team championships. Finn Balor defeated Adrian Neville. Now, I looked at Adrian Neville and I'm like, okay, I got to hover over this name to remember who this guy was. And of course, it was Pac. Just one of those, I just totally forgot.
It's just Neville, yeah. Right.
And then just the name even threw me. So like Neville, I would have been. So, I mean, he was awesome, and I mean, still is awesome, but, it's a shame that it didn't work out better.
Yep.
It went 13 minutes. The Fatal 4-Way, which we're about to cover, and then KO defeating Sami Zayn by knockout to win the NXT championship in 23 minutes. And again, Jeff, we'll talk about this during the match, but I mean, look at us 8 years later. And part of me says, can you believe that these guys are intertwined? And then I tell you, I'm not surprised at all.
What haven't they been? Yeah, right.
I don't think these guys could work together or against each other too much to the point where I get sick of it. I will tell you, I really look forward to the day where there's a documentary on the two of them start to finish. So everything that happened pre-NXT, their friendship growing up, NXT, the main roster stuff. I mean, I hope you have cameras behind the scenes right now, just getting everything that's going on now involving those two. I mean, can you believe it's hard to even compare it to anything? I mean, maybe Edge and Christian, where like two guys, I mean, spent so much time together throughout such a long period of time and did such amazing things. Match ratings, the Finn match 4.25, the main event 3.5. The match we're going to cover, we'll get into, but what a fun show. So, dude, the story between these four women is still going on and will go on for their entire careers. But how did we get to this match at this point in 2015?
Yeah, I can only imagine like 2-3 years from now, WrestleMania, 42 or something is when we finally get the Horsewomen match or something like that, but then we're already complaining that they're past their prime or some shit, like just ridiculous. But yeah, so this one, all four women in this one were really carrying NXT in a lot of ways at this point. And so they were in almost every storyline to some degree, whether they were kind of like, showing up and interfering in a match or just having matches themselves. So the four of them, not hot-shotting the belts. I do want to point that out, that there was, they weren't just treating it back and forth. There were, I say, long reigns, 100-day plus of, what they were doing on this one. But trying to explain, I try to like trim it down as much as possible for kind of how we got to this and what happened. And so, of course, over the summer of 2014, and of course, this show taking place, it was February 11th, 15, you had, and I will be calling her by her NXT name of Sasha Banks. Of Sasha Banks losing to Bayley. It was actually a match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. And so it was NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. It was September 11th of 2014. You actually had Sasha attacking Bayley after her match with Charlotte. And then eventually kind of Charlotte stopping Sasha from that. At this point, too, you actually also had Becky Lynch turning on Bayley and aligning herself as a heel with Sasha a couple weeks later on this one. It was actually Sasha beat Bayley and then Becky turning on Bayley. So something to keep in mind, you got Sasha and Becky on this one are Sasha and Becky kind of playing the heels as this storyline's coming on or becoming heels, where you got Charlotte and Yeah, I'll get it right. Becky being your faces on this. So it was then November at this point. They just kind of kept attacking each other, after matches and stuff like that. You had storyline injuries. You had some actual injuries. Like they kind of kept them out for a little bit, like kind of things happened on that one. It was actually NXT TakeOver Our Revolution on December 11th. That Banks losing again to Charlotte on this one. And so again, you've got all these different, Bayley and Charlotte. Now we're at Sasha and Charlotte, and them just kind of having all these, different matches. So she actually got a rematch. It was Christmas Day, 2014, where again Banks losing on that one. And now, again, Becky getting involved again. It was the start of the year. It was January 21st, where Banks got another title shot against Charlotte. She lost because Becky interfered, attacked Charlotte, DQ, title can change. And so now you've got who were aligned, Becky and Sasha, and starting to have a little animosity there. And so, it was that night as well too. Bayley, I think she broke her hand or something. Like she was out a little bit with her injury, but after that match in the DQ and Banks and Becky attacking Charlotte, Bayley actually came out and made the save. But after she made the save, Bayley attacked Charlotte. So it was, all these different angles of what this was coming at. It's actually it's difficult to explain. It's actually really good storytelling in regards to how they get all the women involved in order to make you believe, okay, who hates who's going on here, or what's going on here. And so it might seem like it's forced. It really wasn't, because these women were the top 4 in NXT, and they had been having storyline matches back and forth between all of them, that they knew that they were going to be telling NXT, actually they NXT Triple H knew that working with these 4 was going to be the top of the card. And so it really makes a lot of sense for why, okay, we need to have a fatal 4-way between these 4, because it's only one way to settle it. And if it's not in a cage, it's a fatal 4-way, So that's what we get on this one on this show.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yep. And I'm excited. It's been a long time since I've watched this match in full. I don't know if it's the same with you. So I'm excited to kind of sit and watch this one and just kind of see what's happening. Yep.
Good, man. Well, I'm excited for it. Fatal 4-ways, they can be a little messy, but when you pull them off, it's a lot of great action. And as we know, this is not a super long match, so I'm guessing there's just going to be a shit ton of action, and it's going to be a really fun match. So I'm looking forward to it. A little tricky to find this one. So we are NXT TakeOver Season 2, Episode 1. Rival 2015, Season 2, Episode 1 of TakeOvers. We're at the 1 hour and 8-minute mark. 1 hour, 8 minute. Jeff?
Yeah, if you search just Rival on Peacock, it doesn't show up. You got to go through the NX or the TakeOver. Yep.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Let's do this, man. Yeah.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, here we are.
Right, this is a huge challenge for her, but Jason, we had
108
on the pre-show.
Charlotte entering.
Just like I did.
That's Becky on the left. She looks a lot different, man.
Yeah, this is her NXT. Yeah, this is before she had any of the steampunk or anything like that. Bayley was the hugger at this point still. Yep.
Yeah, not big time Bex, just Bex. So, or Becky. Okay, so we got all 4 in the ring. Bayley's your white meat baby face. Well, let me start with that. Bayley is a baby face or a heel?
She attacked Charlotte at the end, like I said here, and so there's really Becky and Sasha are your clear heels on this one. So,
but what do you prefer Bayley as?
Nowadays, I would have never thought of it at this point. Definitely a heel at this point, I think. And I think giving her a stable was actually pretty smart too. If you remember,
she's a fantastic heel. And I mean, she'll be a great baby face at some point in the future. But like, the thing is, like, for these stars, right? And like Bayley is an absolute superstar, right? Well, between NXT and the main roster, how many years are you going to watch her perform? 15? 20?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, there has to be some variance to character, presentation, heel and babyface. But it's like, I've never thought about this before, but outside of, again, there's extreme examples like a John Cena, but for the most part, if you want to be a superstar in this business, you have to reinvent yourself, obviously, but but I think even broader than that, you have to be able to be a really good babyface and a really good heel.
Yep.
Like, tell me who, again, if Hulk Hogan doesn't become a heel, his career is over in 1996.
Yep.
Okay. And yeah, maybe he does some nostalgic stuff, but like, he's not making millions and millions of dollars, over the next few years. So it's like, all of them, they have to be able to do both. I mean, even look at like Ronda Rousey, part-timer. Okay, well, if you're going to be around long enough, you're going to have to be both a heel and babyface. Like, yeah, you come in and you're a babyface. I mean, look at Logan Paul. Like, he's going to have to be a heel and a babyface. Brock Lesnar, it's like the heel thing got old, so he needs to be a babyface, and he's obviously doing a great job in that role. But it's just an interesting thing to think about. Is like, in wrestling school, you better be able to do both and be prepared at some point in your career to flip flop a few times. But I think Bayley's just been awesome.
Well, and if you remember, her hugger character was dead. Like, for whatever reason, it did not transition well to the main roster. She was the face of NXT. If you remember, she was the last of the horsewomen to leave NXT full time. Everybody else had been called up, which we'll talk about in the aftermath on this one. And for whatever reason, that character just didn't transition. But man, when they made her the bad guy, and the character has evolved since then too, like, come a really long way. And now to have stable, I think really a stable that Triple H likes, because he was high on Dakota Kai. He is high on Io Sky, obviously, to pair her with them. I think that, Bayley, she really carried NXT after these women left. And so, before she could. And so I think Triple H has a lot of respect for her. And so, I mean, she's the only one with the stable. And yeah, Sasha pounded on Becky at this point, so already your allegiances have fallen. And Charlotte's just she's been on the outside actually after one big move. But I think that like they've had to now. And even Charlotte has just come back as face, and she said it's very. There's been interviews where it's hard for her because she's so used to being the bad guy that. It's difficult for her. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you caught when Flair came.
By the way,
go ahead.
Tonight here on the WWE Network, Sheamus saying earlier the Irish are coming.
Like, it's
nonstop.
Yep. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, really good work. Sorry, go ahead.
They're doing a good job to not clutter the ring too. There's only usually two in the ring, or Becky's kind of on the outside here, or like, just kind of out of the way. Yeah. But I think, Charlotte was saying difficult, but at Raw 30, they had the conversation, or I think it was Ric Flair after said, he's like, you know what? Charlotte doesn't need me, because if you remember, like, she kind of he walked out there and then she walked out. And so I think he is fully ready to kind of pass that torch. Nothing crazy. But I think, he doesn't need to be involved in any crazy storylines and stuff like that again. But, and these women too, for this match too, this was before the women's revolution. And so that's something to think about too, that they were going out here and trying
about that. So this is before that. Okay.
And so you still had that, you still had a lot of that going on. Of really them trying to make a name for themselves. So that, big spear there from Charlotte. And so
very well scouted by Sasha Banks.
You got to figure, was that on purpose?
Absolutely, she got out of the way. She didn't want to get speared.
That's a young Corey Graves there too. Yeah, making the call there. So yeah, I think it's just it's interesting. And so at this point, I'm trying to look here. So it was actually at this point it would have been the end here, but Nikki Bella was the Divas champion at this point. And would go on to lose it. One of the competitors in this ring, which we'll talk about. But I think that they were really trying to make a name for themselves and make women wrestling not be the bathroom match, as it has always been a joke like that for a long time. And so I'll ask you the obvious question here as well too. Will Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, will she wrestle in a WWE ring again?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
I have no doubt. I think that he's going to do it's got big knees there in the corner from her. She would do the go away for a couple of years, and she would come back the conquering hero of, the women's wrestling. And so
will be a bigger star when she returns.
Yes. You see it all the time. They leave, and then, things happen where they, make a better name for themselves.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you, it's amazing how plain Jane Becky looks. And it just goes to show you, how important that the look is. She just blends in. I mean, of these four women, she has the least distinctive look. She looks like any female wrestler, right? Like with her gear and her look. It goes to show you, the how important that look is for a wrestler, just that distinctive look. And she just doesn't have it at this point in her career.
Yeah. And none of them really do. Like, there's not a big hurricane run there off the top rope. And Bayley,
she has the least. Yeah. She's broken around about Bayley.
Come on, Bayley. Come on, Bayley.
I mean, all four over, but she was just so over.
Yep. There's the Bayley to belly or finisher.
Bayley's gonna win it. Bayley's gonna win it. And Becky Lynch.
I'll ask. So, who is in Europe, and you can include Sasha, who has been, and I named down to two, who's been the most successful out of these four women, in your opinion?
Man, so based on like who the most decorated is, I mean, it's Charlotte, right? I mean, she's been in the most big matches, and somehow, despite her father's, shadow, she's just been able to really, trailblaze her own path. And I mean, so she's the most decorated. I will say though that to me, the most impressive of the four, and the one that I think has reached the greatest heights, is Becky.
Yeah, I agree.
At that point, she's been the most over. Let's see what she.
Oh, hold on, Charlotte going.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Becky's reached the highest highs. I mean, and we've kind of cooled off on her, and that's a point I wanted to make. But I think she is the biggest star at the biggest time of the four, just in terms of fan, But again, Charlotte's going to be your biggest, who you want to put on the truck, because it's Ric Flair's daughter. And our friends that haven't watched wrestling in forever and are like, well, why are these women in like big spots? And then they see, oh, wait, that's Ric Flair's daughter. Oh, wait, she's actually a hell of a wrestler. Like that, she's going to be like the poster child for women's wrestling. So again, I know it's kind of a weird answer, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Hooks the leg.
Nope, 2 count. I will say Charlotte has she's done a lot, but I think Becky has had to work harder to get to where she is. She's not had all the titles that Charlotte's had. Charlotte has the name pedigree, and so that kind of makes sense why they're treating it that way. But in regards to Becky, like, I don't, name me one of the most iconic just wrestling shots ever in the last 5 years is Becky after she broke her nose, standing amongst all the fans, blood dripping down her face. Like, that is to this day one of the most iconic shots in wrestling. And so, when she became the man, it was nice. If you saw, or I don't know if you saw the interview too, Rick said, "Hey, I was stupid to kind of fight her on the man because she is the man now. Like, it's just one of those.
Oh, wow. Was that it?
Yeah.
Champion here, my God, here comes.
Well, and
close, but Sasha. Hang on.
Whoa, gee.
Oh, boy, that was close. Yeah.
But the thing with Flair is he's made amends with everyone, so he realizes that he was being childish with that, just like he has with 100 other situations with other people. So he's at a point in his life where he's trying to make amends, which is smart.
Can the champ hang on? The champ has a lot.
I feel like Becky should be a mega star, and like I'm talking like Roman Reigns type rarefied air. And I feel like they've completely blown that, and they've made her feel like too normal like everyone else. And maybe WrestleMania season, they can heat her back up. I mean, she should be Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Roman Reigns. That's what Becky should be, in my opinion. And they've made her just blend in with the women's roster, and I absolutely hate that. So,
and she's feuding with Bayley now, which that'll be a good match. Like that'll be fine. And so
give Becky a 12-month run as the champion. And I understand they're trying to make stars, but
Yes, cover, and that's it.
a little roll up. Yep.
The boss.
We have a new women's champion.
Here is your winner and new NXT Women's Champion, Sasha Banks.
is that her first time as champion?
Say again. I can't hear you over the.
Is this her first time as champion?
I believe so. Yes.
So this was the era where like, good, yeah, she's kind of being like a badass heel about it. I just felt like every time a new women would win a title, they'd cry, and I was just like, man, we need someone like. I love how she's just kind of towered on top. Really good. The last thing I want to say, and I mean, I could talk about the women in this era for hours. The last thing I'll say, Jeff, is I feel that the WWE has done a far better job of turning women into stars than the men. And what I mean by that is you look at all of these women. I mean, the four of them and Bianca, Ronda Rousey, even what they've done with like Liv and Alexa Bliss, and I know I'm probably missing a few. I mean, I think they've kind of dropped the ball on Shayna Baszler, but again, you go through these women and they have built so many stars out of these women, and I think they've done a far better job of it than the men. So it's just cool to see this moment in time. But this match was fantastic.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll talk more, but let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
So how would you summarize that?
Yeah, it was great. I am right there with you on, the match itself was really good. There was not probably, I actually would have preferred it to be a little longer, but I think
I was going to say the same thing. If it goes 20 minutes, it's a better match.
But I think though, then you're going to start having the, it overstayed its welcome argument. And so you wanted to, at this point, we're trying to keep the show tight where some of the other, like none of the matches were really long on this card. And so they did, the main event was just over 20 and close to 25 minutes. And so maybe they were trying to have time for that. And so, I think that would be the only thing I'd say, but there was not downtime. All of the kind of tie-ups and spots made sense. There's not a whole lot of downtime at all. And so, the match itself, I wouldn't really change anything. Yeah.
Loved it, man. I just, right now we got the Charlotte, Sasha handshake. I love it. Absolutely. This was good. This whole era. I mean, everything it became. I'm really glad we covered this one. This was great.
Yeah. So kind of right in the moment here, of course, you have literally, so Charlotte extending her hand and Banks and Charlotte kind of embracing, but then Banks still being the heel and pushing Charlotte away from her. It's still kind of play up that heel character. And so, which a nice little touch there. Yeah, it kind of keeps the fire there, and so that's good stuff. So yeah, yes, and to your point, she was so in order here, you had Paige, of course, being the inaugural champ of NXT Women, and then Charlotte, and then her carrying it, and now you get into Sasha carrying it. And so so in the aftermath, so I'm kind of going to go through each of the women here real, so we got a little bit of time. Briefly, of course, a rematch on this one, Banks retaining on that one, her actually taking on Alexa Bliss as well too after that, retaining at that one. It was actually NXT Unstoppable on May 20th, a couple or months after this one, retaining against Becky Lynch on this one, so them having their match as well. Just again, all the women just being involved with each other at this point. Over the summer, you actually had Banks, Charlotte teaming up to defeat Emma and Dana Brooke, which I had forgotten that it was funny because there was all these comments about it, Royal Rumble, about like, oh, Emma and Dana Brooke like teaming up again. I had forgot that they were a tag team. And then sure enough, here we go back in 2015 at this point, like, yeah, them being, a tag team. And so, but after that match in July, actually Charlotte challenging Banks to the championship, which she accepted. It was actually just on an NXT show in July, which Banks retaining at that point. And so, and her eventually dropping the belt. It would actually have been NXT TakeOver Brooklyn in August, Banks dropping the belt to Bayley. And so, ending her reign just shy of 200 days. This match, it was actually the match of the year at the NXT Year-End Awards. It was a very good match, but it leading to, of course, their better match, if you will, in a lot of ways, of the 30-minute Iron Woman match. Banks defeating Bayley in that one to fall to 3. And that was actually Sasha's last match in NXT. So there's a lot of stories and videos out there in the background of the cameras were there when they were told about this. It's actually really cool. Triple sits them down and tells them what they're going to be doing. And so that was really cool to see. So yeah. So Bayley feuded with Emma for a little bit. And so of course we had those tag matches, like we said. She was actually the number one contender. And so, she had to beat, like we said, Sasha became the number one contender and then beat Sasha to become the champion at this point. And so, and then the other one match, Charlotte at this point too, she kind of, not a whole lot after this, like, well, she had a rematch, really jumped up not too long after this. A lot of women did, because it was July where Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha kind of made their debut too. Now, to different degrees. Like I said, there was some other match. Of course, there was the Iron Woman match. There was other matches that took place that, they were still having down on NXT, but this was literally at this point, this was the start of from Stephanie, the women's revolution and the Divas stuff. And so, not too long after this match would have been like July 13th is when the three of them kind of made their debut. So, big things happening. Would have thought, like, where it took off from this, if you remember the hashtag campaign and giving the women a shot and all that other stuff. And so they were on the forefront of a lot of that. And, kind of, crazy to think if, the right people weren't in the right place at the right time with Stephanie kind of pushing for this and doing these things, and these women not, if they weren't ready, who knows what would have happened. And so I think just a lot of really good things, coming from this, a lot of good aftermath. This is a good story on this one because it's still being played out. We're still seeing it, which is different than most of our pay. We don't have the end game here or the full payoff, but that's okay. So good stuff. You got thoughts, Tom, on the aftermath before the reviews on this one?
No, go into the reviews, man. I love this stuff, man. This was just, there was so many good things happening at this time. And, it's fun to look back on what is still occurring 8 years later with these women.
Yep. So in order, highest to lowest, you had Sasha at number 3 on the PWI. Charlotte was 6. Bayley was 11. And bringing up the tail end here is Becky Lynch at 17. And so all over the board here, but it's like, I don't know why Becky wasn't as high as that, or higher than top 10, but same with Bayley is sitting at 11, but you definitely argue like the others, they're where they belong. And so Observer newsletter on this one. On the surface, very chaotic, but really it was simple. They just took turns with each girl getting a chance to shine for a while before getting cut off. And as she started to fight back, Sasha released the face lock and crucifixed Charlotte over for a clean finish, pinning the champion to win the title. Beautiful, beautiful finish, just outstanding stuff. Old friend Charlotte and Sasha embraced afterwards, but then started shoving each other. This show rules. 4 stars. A Bleacher Report, I thought this was interesting on this one. They gave, it kind of speaks to what we're talking about a little bit here. Triple H mentioned during his live edition of the Austin show that he would like to see the women get a better chance to prove their worth on the main roster. Wednesday night, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Becky Lynch prove that if that opportunity ever presents itself, they are more than willing to step up and deliver high-quality wrestling matches. So 4 stars from our boy Dave. Thoughts, where are you at on this one? What are you thinking?
So I'm going to probably go higher on this, not because of the match. I mean, the match was really good, but because of just like what it represents and having the 4 of them in the ring. And like, that's a lot of star power. And if you put that match on at WrestleMania this year, it would headline one of the 2 nights.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's a lot here. So I'm going to make it an 8. Again, there's 4 better women's matches. Well, no kidding. I get it. But not the 4 of them in the ring at the same time 8 years ago, given what they've been able to accomplish. Looking back on that is really, really fun. And again, the significance of the fact that if and when the 4 of them headline a WrestleMania, it'll be the biggest women's match in the history of women's wrestling and one of the biggest Mania matches in the history of WrestleMania. Tell me I'm wrong.
I am actually right at an 8 too, and I say that because this, like we talked about a little bit here, this match was before really any of the really notable matches that these women did. And so, and I was not watching NXT full time at this point. I don't think many people were, but or it was not nearly as popular as it became. But this was one where if this was the match that they were putting on and we didn't know what was going to follow this up, like eventually in the coming, months, weeks, whatever, that this was really impressive. Like it was not, rest hold. It was not necessarily what, you think of as the old kind of women's wrestling. Like they were out there putting on a show. It was really good. And so, and this is one too, where if you're trying to, I wish we'd been tracking since we started the show. One of those matches where you're like, boy, this was a turning point. This was really a turning point. And so the reason I know that there's better out there, which is why I'm not scoring it higher than an 8, I think, but I think for both of us, I think an 8 is right where it needs to be. Because it was, no complaints here. I'm glad we covered it.
Yep, that was a fun one. Good work, my man. Good work.
Yep, thank you.
Well, that's it. We got a doozy next week, man. I'm looking forward to that one. I
don't even remember where
I did not know that match ever happened.
You, me either. We've got a crazy one. Our fans guess, but it's Kurt Angle and Shinsuke Nakamura, and you can guess where it's from. And so. But after at that point too, we will Elimination Chamber is the end of this week. Like that's it. We are officially on the road as of next week.
Good. I'm pumped, man. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Panel.